He had everything handed to him: private jets, designer clothes, and a last name that opened doors before he even knocked. But inside he was crumbling, failing every test, drowning in a silence of his own making. Everyone had given up on him: his teachers, his classmates, even his own father. Until one day, in the quietest corner of the school, a janitor, a black woman nobody ever really looked at, said something that hit him harder than any lesson ever had. He thought she was just cleaning floors. He had no idea. She was about to clean out everything he thought he knew about the world and about himself. His name was Lucas Reed, the only son of Charles Reed, a tech tycoon whose name graced the cover of Forbes as regularly as the changing seasons. At 17, Lucas attended one of the most elite private high schools in Atlanta, not because he'd earned his way in, but because the name Reed was a golden key. Inside those marble hallways, Lucas was known for three things: his arrogance, his expensive clothes, and his academic failure. His grades were a joke. Teachers passed him out of fear of his father's influence, not merit. And he didn't care. Why would he? One day he would inherit an empire. What could a GPA do that his last name couldn't? His father, Charles, was a man of stone, a self-made billionaire who didn't believe in excuses. "You're an embarrassment," Charles had said one night after another call from the school. "If you worked for me, you'd be fired." "But I'm not your employee. I'm your son." "The world doesn't care," Charles had replied, his voice like ice. "Either you become someone, or you'll just be another rich kid with no spine, and I will not carry you." The next day, Lucas pulled into the faculty parking lot in his sleek Audi, a birthday gift. He walked the halls like a runway model. Some students stared in envy, others in disgust. But one pair of eyes didn't look away. She was an older black woman, likely in her 50s, mopping the floor near the side entrance. Her uniform was wrinkled, but her presence wasn't. Her posture was upright, her eyes quiet but alert. Lucas didn't notice her. To him, she was invisible, just the janitor. But the school began to weigh on him. More tests, more failing grades, and then came the blow. His father cut off his credit cards, took the car, and forced him to take the school bus. One bitter morning, he passed the janitor in the hallway. He noticed she was whispering something while cleaning. "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Lucas stopped. "What did you just say?" She looked up, her gaze calm, unafraid. "Nothing you're ready to understand, boy." He chuckled, but something in her words stung. She turned and walked away. But Lucas kept thinking about her. He had no idea that this quiet, invisible woman was about to become the architect of his entire future.
Lucas started walking the school hallways with his hands shoved deep in his pockets. The smug energy he used to carry was gone. Now he walked fast, quiet, trying not to feel the weight of everyone's stares. That morning, he got his literature test back, an 18 out of 100. Scrawled in red at the bottom, "Did you even read the passage?" More tests came that week. Math, 24%. History, 31%. Biology, a solid 0. It wasn't funny anymore. The school counselor called him in again. This time, her voice wasn't gentle. "Lucas," she said, "you are academically at risk. I'm not talking about behavior, I mean failure. You are at the bottom of the entire senior class." "It's temporary," he shrugged. "I'll hire a tutor." "You already had 3, she replied, her words sharp. "They all quit." That shut him up. Later that day, he ducked out through a back entrance to avoid being seen. And there she was again, the janitor, scrubbing up a soda spill near the cafeteria. She saw him and smiled politely. He stopped. "You said something last time about Socrates?" She stood slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. "And you remember it?" "Yeah. Kinda weird for a janitor to be quoting ancient philosophers." She crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "It's weirder," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "when a boy with the whole world at his feet can't pass a simple reading test." He bit his cheek. That one hurt. "You used to be a teacher, didn't you?" he guessed. "I've taught plenty," she said, her voice holding a story he couldn't yet understand. "Then teach me," he said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "Help me, please." She studied him for a long, silent moment. "One condition," she finally said. "You leave your name and your pride at the door. You start from zero, from the floor up." "Fine," he whispered. I can't keep failing." She handed him a simple spiral notebook. "You come early, before class. We meet here. And every evening you write down what you've learned, not facts, truth." "What if I get it all wrong?" he asked, the question raw and real. She gave him a small, mysterious smile. "Then you'll finally be getting it right."
The next morning, Lucas showed up before sunrise. The school was still asleep, wrapped in a quiet fog. He found her, Evelyn, in the east wing, polishing the floor with slow, precise circles. "Hey," he said, his voice awkward. "You said you'd teach me, remember?" Evelyn paused and looked at him calmly. "I remember. I also said it wouldn't be easy." "I don't care," he said. "I need this." "Then let's begin," she said, her voice soft but firm. "But first, you should know my name. It's Evelyn Wallace." His eyes widened. "Why would you leave a job like that for this?" Evelyn folded her cloth slowly, her expression unreadable. "Sometimes," she said, her voice holding a story of its own, "life takes everything you thought was yours and leaves you with nothing but what you know. And I still know how to teach." Lucas nodded, a wave of something he couldn't name, respect maybe, washing over him. For the first time in his life, he saw someone who was truly strong, without needing power or money to prove it. "So where do we start?" he asked. "We start with the first truth. Pride fools you into thinking you already know, but when you admit you don't, that's when you really start to learn." She looked at him, her gaze piercing. "I'm not talking about reading words, Lucas. I'm talking about understanding what's between the lines." The days that followed fell into a strange, almost sacred rhythm. Lucas showed up early. Evelyn greeted him not with lectures, but with questions. "What did that sentence make you feel? Why do you think this character stayed silent? What does courage sound like on a page?" He began to see differently. The books stopped feeling like chores. The sentences started to pull at his gut. His notebook filled up not with answers, but with thoughts, reflections, and fears. He wrote about his father, about the crushing pressure of his last name, about how angry he was at being empty all the time. Evelyn read every word. One night, 2 boys from the football team walked by as he was writing in the empty cafeteria. "Look at little Reed now," one of them sneered, "writing love letters to the janitor." Lucas clenched his jaw, ready to react, ready to fight. But Evelyn gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't measure depth," she whispered, her voice a calm anchor in his storm of anger, "with a shallow ruler." The words hit him deeper than any insult ever could. Later that night, Lucas received a message from his father. "They've updated your academic record. One last warning. Turn things around or you're out. No trust fund, no apartment, nothing." Lucas stared at the message, but for the first time, he didn't feel afraid. He felt ready. Friday arrived with a buzz of end-of-term energy.
Lucas walked through the crowded halls, gripping a folder full of redone assignments and essays now marked with praise. He'd never been proud of anything academic before. He thought maybe, just maybe, his father would be proud too. But when he reached the counselor's office, Charles Reed was already there, standing by the window in a sharp gray suit, checking his phone like it owed him money. "You're late," Charles muttered, without looking up. "Let's get this over with." The counselor, clearly nervous, handed over Lucas's new report. Charles took it, scanned it, and his expression hardened. The grades were better, but they were paired with glowing remarks. "Shows initiative, significant change in attitude." Charles closed the folder with a dull snap. "This is what you call progress?" "I'm trying," Lucas said, his voice steady. "With whom?" Charles pressed. "The last tutor quit. Who has been helping you?" Lucas paused, then said it clearly. "Evelyn, the janitor." Silence. Charles blinked, then gave a dry, sharp laugh. "You're kidding." "She used to be a professor." "She's a janitor," Charles cut in, his voice like ice. "That is all that matters." "She taught me more than any of your overpriced tutors," Lucas's own voice rose. "She taught me how to think." Charles took a step forward, his voice a low threat. "You are embarrassing this family. You are wasting time with people who have nothing to offer." "She sees me," Lucas shot back. "You never did." Charles stared at him as if he were a stranger. "If you keep going down this road, you lose everything. No car, no money, no name. Don't test me." Lucas felt the words burn his tongue, but he said them anyway. "Maybe I need to lose everything to figure out who I really am." Charles didn't answer. He just turned and walked away, the door closing behind him with a sound of finality. The next week, Lucas was quieter, angrier, but not defeated. The other kids at school noticed. The teachers did too. Rumors spread. Some said Lucas was obsessed with the janitor. Others mocked him openly. But Lucas didn't flinch. Instead, he printed his latest essay, the one that had earned him an A, and posted it on the school's main reading board under the title, "Learning Doesn't Make Me Weak, Ignorance Does." The paper was gone the next day, but the message had already taken root.
Monday morning brought a strange calm. Lucas walked into the school early and found Evelyn in the back hallway, mopping near the old science wing. "Coffee?" he said, handing her a cup. "And something else." Evelyn took the cup, her eyes knowing. "You've got that look," she said, "the one people get right before they say something that changes everything." Lucas sat on the floor. "I looked you up online," he admitted. "An old article. Evelyn Wallace, tenured professor at the University of Chicago, guest speaker, published writer, award winner." She closed her eyes for a long moment. "That woman existed," she said softly. "She just doesn't get invited back anymore." "What happened?" She leaned against her mop handle, her voice even, without a trace of self-pity. "I blew the whistle on a plagiarism scandal involving a powerful dean. I refused hush money. They shut me out, quietly, permanently. The people I trusted disappeared. And then my husband died in a car accident on the way to a conference I had organized." Lucas swallowed hard. "You lost everything." "Except my mind," she said, "and my voice." "Then I want to make you a deal," he said, his own voice firm. "I want you to teach me, really teach me, like I'm one of your college students. Don't hold back. I want to be someone not because of my name, but because of what I do." She looked at him, a long, careful assessment. "And you're part of the deal." "I won't quit," he said, "no matter how hard it gets. I'll fail, rewrite, relearn, whatever it takes." Evelyn extended her hand. "Then we have a deal." They shook on it. No contracts, just truth. That week, things intensified.
Evelyn didn't lecture, she provoked. Lucas read Baldwin, Hughes, Morrison. He wrote reflections, not essays. His notebooks filled with thoughts on injustice, on systems, on himself. The abandoned school library became their secret classroom. Soon other students, the quiet ones, the ones who had been written off, started to join them. A quiet revolution was beginning. But not everyone was pleased. One afternoon, Evelyn was called into the office. "We've had complaints," the assistant principal said. "You're gathering students outside of official capacity." "I'm teaching," she replied simply. "That's not your role." "Maybe it should be," Evelyn countered. They asked her to stop. Lucas was furious when he found out. "I'll go to the board. I'll go public." "No," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Not yet. Your voice needs to be strong enough to stand on its own first. Not your father's name. Yours."
It happened faster than he expected. Lucas walked into the garage after school, drenched from the rain, gripping a paper with a bold red A on it, the first he'd earned all year. The essay was titled, "The Courage to Unlearn." His teacher's only comment, "You found your voice." He wanted to show his father, just once, not for approval, but for the truth of it. He found Charles standing beside a brand-new electric sports car, speaking to someone over his Bluetooth about acquisitions. "Dad," Lucas said, holding the paper. Charles took it with a blank face, scanned the title, and raised an eyebrow. "Is this a joke?" "It's a real essay. I got an A." "Lucas, this is a diary entry about feelings. This isn't academic, it's sentimental." "It's about growth," Lucas insisted, "about learning." Charles tossed the paper onto the passenger seat. "Who taught you to write like this?" Lucas hesitated, then said it clearly. "Evelyn, the janitor." Silence. Charles stepped forward, his voice low and full of venom. "You're telling me you're learning from someone who mops floors?" "She was a professor. She's a failure now," Charles cut in. Lucas's fists clenched. "She's done more for me than you ever have. If you don't stop seeing her, you lose everything. Your money, your car, your name." "Then maybe I need to lose it all," Lucas said, his voice trembling, "to figure out who I really am." Charles stared at him coldly. "Pack your things. You're done." The next day, Evelyn was gone, fired, escorted from the gate with no chance to say goodbye. Lucas searched the halls. They were empty. Her bucket, her coat, all gone. He felt like he couldn't breathe. His grades started slipping again, not because he didn't know the material, but because his fire was gone. He walked the halls like a ghost. Then came the final announcement. The end-of-year speech contest. The topic? What it means to win in life. Lucas stared at the paper, then went home and wrote all night. Not for a grade, not for applause, for her.
The night of the speech contest arrived. The auditorium was packed. Parents in expensive coats, students in neatly pressed suits, college scouts in the back row. Lucas stood behind the curtain, wearing a plain navy shirt and dark jeans. No flashy shoes, no last name pinned to his chest, just him and his story. His name was called. He stepped onto the stage. The room fell quiet. He looked across the crowd and began. "My name is Lucas Reed," he said, his voice steady. "Some of you know me as the kid who wasted a golden ticket, who didn't care, who failed. They say I had everything, but I didn't have the one thing that mattered, someone who believed in me. Until she showed up." He paused, letting the words settle. "She wasn't my teacher, not officially. She had no office, no authority, just a mop and a heart big enough to see through my anger.
She taught me how to read between the lines, in books and in life. She taught me how to write, how to think, how to listen. She didn't just clean the floors of this school. She cleared the fog in my head. The air in the room shifted. People leaned forward. But she was fired, Lucas said, his voice dropping, silenced, because systems don't like it when someone from the bottom starts making a real difference. So today, I'm not speaking to impress you. I'm speaking to honor her. He held up his notebook. She told me that real winning isn't about being rich or powerful. It's about becoming someone worth remembering. From the back of the room, a woman with a headscarf and quiet eyes wiped a tear from her cheek and smiled. Evelyn. She had come back, quietly, just to see him shine. The video of his speech spread faster than any Reed Corporation press release. Billionaire's son credits school janitor for saving his life. Evelyn was offered a speaking engagement at a local college, then another, then a teaching position. The doors that had been slammed shut were now wide open. Lucas passed every class, not with pity, but with purpose. He declined the Ivy League offers and chose a small college focused on social justice. When asked why, he said, "Because I want to teach the way she taught me." Years later, the Evelyn Institute opened its doors in a repurposed community center. It was a place for kids who had been written off, a place for second chances. And on its opening day, Charles Reed stood quietly in the back, watching his son speak about justice, humility, and healing. After the event, they met outside. "I didn't expect to cry," Charles admitted. "I didn't expect to forgive you," Lucas said. And they hugged, not as father and heir, but as two men, trying.